let's have a look at this. So this is the whole speech. We've already seen the last 28 seconds because apparently all the TVNZ News wanted you to see was the being kicked out. But there's actually quite a lot of meat in this, and I think Queen Chloe does her thing about the Palestinians in the House today.
Chloe Swarbrick.
Mr. Speaker, I guess at this point in time the question really has to be asked, what words are left? We have libraries and libraries and libraries worth of evidence and research and data that tells us that what is happening in Palestine and has been happening for the last 76 years is ethnic cleansing. It is apartheid. It is genocide. And then there are the live streams that are now being delivered to all of our cell phones 24/7 over the last better part of 2 years. Mr. Speaker, my question for this place is what the hell is the point of our jobs? Because so far all I have heard from contributions is the blame game. New Zealanders, Mr. Speaker, the world, Mr. Speaker, deserves so much better than that. We hear from members of the government and from the Prime Minister in response to our questions today that this is all just a matter of strongly held views, apparently on both sides. But, Mr. Speaker, genocide is a fact, not a feeling. Omar Bartov, a professor of Holocaust and genocide studies at Brown University, says, and I quote, "My inescapable conclusion has become that Israel is committing genocide against the Palestinian people. Having grown up in a Zionist home, lived the first half of my life in Israel, served in the IDF as a soldier and officer, and spent most of my career researching and writing on war crimes and the Holocaust, this was a painful conclusion to reach, and one that I resisted as long as I could. But I have been teaching classes on genocide for a quarter of a century. I can recognize one when I see one." Mr. Speaker, we asked the Prime Minister today what the harm could possibly be of recognising in the most basic sense Palestinian statehood. And frankly, Mr. Speaker, he could not answer the question. Instead, in the face of 500,000 people being consciously and intentionally starved to death after being mercilessly carpet-bombed and sniped as they line up for food aid, the Prime Minister decided to appeal once again to Hamas. In the face of innocent people being slaughtered, he appealed to, but what about the terrorist organisation? So, Mr. Speaker, to use that rationale and to use that logic in response, this government is willing so far to seemingly only recognise one of the two states in the two-state solution that is supposedly arguing for. Yet it is not willing to apply the same rationale with regard to terroristic violence, the likes of the genocidal campaign which Israel and the IDF is currently raining down on the Palestinian people. How is that not the basis for the same questions to be asked about the statehood of Israel? Mr. Speaker, then there's just the bald-faced facts. We are a laggard, we are an outlier, and it is not only appalling in the face of this genocide and of the merciless slaughter of these innocent people after having been made refugees in their own land, but we are one of the very few countries in the world who so far refuse to acknowledge the absolute bare minimum. 146 UN member states currently recognise Palestinian statehood. That is 3/4 of the United Nations membership. And so far over the last few weeks, we have seen that the United Kingdom, Canada, France and Australia have all moved to commit their intent. But so far, all our government can seem to do is commit to a process. Mr. Speaker, it utterly beggars belief. Human rights should not be conditional. We don't get human rights because somebody else decides that we are worthy, but we get them because we are human. The best way to lose your own human rights is to care about them only when it impacts and affects you. But, Mr. Speaker, we have so much further to go than merely recognising the statehood of Palestine as we should have done 76 years ago. We can and we must uphold the Genocide Convention, which means doing everything that we can to prevent a genocide before it occurs. So, Mr. Speaker, I will reiterate my call for the government to pick up our unlawful occupation of Palestine sanctions bill and to sanction Israel for its war crimes. If we find 6 of 68 government MPs with a spine, we can stand on the right side of history.
That is completely unacceptable to make that statement. Withdraw it and apologise.
No.
Then leave the House for the rest of the week.
Happily.
Do you reckon Jerry's just angry that fiery speech woke him up?
This thing stays on him, and just listen carefully, because in the background you hear someone, we don't know who it is, call out genocide enablers. So listen to that, and then it'll cut out.
Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Genocide apologists. So there you go. That's if your blood's not boiling now, you're dead. Sorry. It was nice knowing you, but you're in the ground already. Jack, do you want to offer some last thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, that was a brilliant speech from Chloe. One of her best, and that's saying something. And it was really good to see that righteous anger in the House today. And I think I'll just end on where she was cut off, which is that it's actually disgraceful that we don't have a sanctions regime in place. And you see, we saw a sanctions regime put in place pretty quickly after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, rightly.
Yep.
And the same should be applied here. We very meekly followed the UK in terms of sanctioning two of the worst and most extreme members of Netanyahu's government, which is really deflecting from the fact that they are just but two of a government that is hell-bent on destroying the foundations of human life in Gaza. And if we are serious in terms of having any kind of moral standing in the world, then we need to sanction Israel economically and diplomatically. And we need to actually, in my view, go even further. And I know Te Māori have this view as well, in terms of actually starting to change the nature of our relationship with the US, who are, of course, the primary enablers of Israel, and actually look at our diplomatic relations with them, and whether we should even still have a US ambassador in New Zealand, I think is an important question. So all power to Chloe, and let's continue to pressure our government to impose sanctions on Israel.
Chewie, want to wrap up this part with anything?
I think the most galling thing for me, right, is we rightly take so much pride in our actions against apartheid in the 80s. And of course, because we're a ridiculous little country, it all relates back to rugby. Maybe we would give more of a shit if Israel had a functional rugby team that we could then bar from coming to this country. Is that the yardstick? There needs to be a sporting link. Look, I've said this before. New Zealand has an obligation to Palestine. We have an obligation to Palestine because of the things that New Zealand soldiers did in Palestine during World War One. We don't like examining that because it's look, you want to create the national myth of the Anzac soldier. We did good and bad overseas. That's what lest we forget stands for. We don't forget. We don't remember selective bits and forget all the bad. We have to remember all of it for one very important reason. It's so you don't repeat your past. And I think because of that, we have an obligation to Palestine. I think if you look at any war memorial throughout this country, you will find Palestine carved into them. So we need to be more active. We need to be more present, and we need to be more brave. We blazed a trail when it came to South Africa. And here we are being shown up by fucking Australia, who would have had to weigh up the fact that they have so many irons in the fire with America at the moment, and they still decided to do the right thing. we are currently lagging behind the UK, whose statement was, well, if you don't stop by September, Israel will have to recognise Palestine, which is about as weak as you can get up until you ask Winston about what's going on. It's weak. It's shameful. It galls me that this is the position that this country has taken. Being a small country means we can get away with some big actions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we are a small but loud Western nation that punches above our weight. Australia is leaving us for dead here. I would like us to load up a whole shitload of humanitarian aid into a couple of grey ships with a black Kiwi painted on the funnel, and we sail it into the Med and see what happens. Like, that's as far as I'm willing to go at this point. Like, Jack, you brought up our response to Ukraine. Do you remember that we granted a whole bunch of emergency visas for people to get out of Ukraine?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Glaringly different when it came to Palestine, where we wouldn't grant family visas, emergency family visas for people to get out of Palestine. That's on Erica Stanford, I think, at that point. So, yeah, we are flat-footed. We're not doing anything. And I think if we want to look at the actions of this country and what we stood for in this time of history, we need to do more. And it's very clear that our coalition of cowardly cunts is doing nothing.
And let me just offer one last thing to wrap up with as well, guys, is that we talked a bit about the capital gains tax last night and how it's not a controversial policy anymore. And the way Chloe speaks from a progressive part of politics. And I think it's time for people to understand that these topics are the more favorable topics as well. Like granting Palestine, granting Gaza statehood is no longer controversial. We get a certain sector of society to tell us that, oh yeah, Luxon, oh you should, I hope they run on a capital gains tax, not knowing that 2/3 of New Zealand think it's a good idea. And I just wanted to show you one thing, right? And just evidence of this happening around the world, because you don't hear this enough in the media, is to the popularity in society of progressive politics and progressives, like what Chloe was just doing there. Is some research that came out in the US by Gallup. Long story short, it was a bunch of newsworthy people. The highest ranking, only ranking politician in America to have a positive ranking was Bernie Sanders. The next highest American politician, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So these people are not seen by the public as the demons that the media portray them to be. What Chloe's saying, or how Chloe's acting, and the policies that the Greens are putting through are not seen, and this is where Labor needs to get a bit brave. Those guys further left to you are not putting out their policies that are fearful to the nation. They're actually policies that the majority of people like. The reason this made news tonight is, of course, because Elon Musk was the most hated man in America, according to this, but that's another conversation altogether. So I would just encourage, I mean, I don't need to encourage Chloe, obviously, she's a firebrand. But for us to remember that we are on the right side of history here. And not just the right side of history from a minority place, we are on the right side of history. And it's what society wants as a majority. Don't listen to what Winston Peters says. It's a difficult decision. No, it's not. Don't listen to what Luxon says. We're to weigh these things up. No, we don't. Like Mehdi Hassan said 2 weeks ago, you know, I'm sorry, but genocide is a black and white issue. And that's where I'll leave that tonight. Mm-hmm. Final word, Jack. Do you want anything else to wrap up and say goodbye with?
Oh, I think you guys have summed it up well. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, let's just all keep raising our voices and doing anything we can and within our power to bring about the pressure needed to end this genocide.
Cut by Jack. Thanks for joining us tonight, mate. You spent an hour with us, bro. Hope that's okay. Hope the fire and stuff's all right with that. But it was good fun.
It was a good chat. Yeah.
A good chat. All right, dude. Talk to you soon.
Awesome.
Cheers,
all
mate.
the best.